What's up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here, and today we're going to talk about how to take your upshots from this to this. Before we dive in, we got to ask the most important question of the day. How you doing today, Sean? You having a good one?
So catch me if I fall.
I have a community of disc golfers trying to improve one stroke at a time over on patreon.com called the Birdie Fam. This isn't really an advertisement on you should join the Birdie Fam, but I will say that having conversations, and that Discord is on a daily basis having conversations about, hey, I'm struggling with this. Hey, what do you guys think about this disc? It's really fantastic for people trying to improve. But one of the things that ends up coming up a lot is the idea of how, like, where are we losing strokes to the course? I can see that I've never shot under par on this track before. I have struggled to shoot this rating on this course before. And thankfully, because of the audience that I work with, whether I am just casually playing or I'm out doing lessons with folks on the course, I end up getting videos and seeing a lot of beginner level golf. And I want to talk about a concept where I think a lot of people are losing strokes, but they may not realize how they're losing those strokes. Let's call it what it is. There are two ends of the spectrum when it comes to disc golf. Those who are really good at disc golf and those who are learning. I don't want to call them bad because I think, no one's ever permanently stuck at being bad at a hobby. It just depends on how much time and effort you want to put in. When you're newer or learning the sport, when you throw your tee shots, most often it's not going to go where you're hoping it goes or really in the middle of the fairway, which means that we're going to have to do two things: scramble and upshots. Now, I believe that this is one of the things that separates the really good players from the learning players, is the ability to not get put in places that they can't get out of. Such as this hole, there are a lot of trees on the way to the basket, so you could get a bad kick and end off here where there's still some gaps that I'm trying to hit to get close to the basket. Now, I could see a learning player decide, hey, I'm close enough to the basket, it doesn't feel like a full throw, so I'm just gonna try to jump putt it up there. And it doesn't get me all the way up there, but I gave it the best effort that I could, and that's how I decided to approach it. And I had the opportunity there. Whereas the more experienced player is gonna have these different distances sort of dialed in. What they're going to do is they're going to throw an upshot that puts them right there. That skipped off of the pole. But to me, this is just the first step in where people are losing strokes, because it compounds when we go to the results of these shots. As you can see here, both of them have a wide open look at the basket for an opportunity to close out the hole and really take the same amount of strokes from where they landed. The person who jump putted and they got here has about a 23 to 24 footer with a little bit of uphill, and that's a very makeable putt. If you're not that great of a putter and this isn't a strength of yours, you could have this upshot here where I was maybe 100 feet, 120 feet away from the basket, and now instead of going 2 strokes to get up and down, which includes the upshot and the putt, I am here, I'm a little nervous, and I leave it short. The duck quacks at me, and now it's gonna take me 3 strokes, which is the par for the hole. So simply by choosing the wrong type of upshot or mis-executing the upshot, I've cost myself some strokes. I've also put more mental anguish on me for the round, because now I've missed a putt, which has 1 level of mental anguish, and 2, I'm asking myself, okay, can I even trust my decision making for those upshots in the future? Player B, the more experienced player, left themselves with this look, which is a sort of brain off, leave the putter in the basket. Even people that choose to, I don't know, like turbo slam dunk, they're not missing those. Now let's go ahead and address elephant in the room number 1. Robbie, I'm a learning player. I can't execute the shots, and that's what's causing me the most issues. And to that, I would say that that's gonna happen. But even if you were at the highest level, there are still times where they mis-execute shots. If it was as easy as learning and becoming experienced means you're going to play your absolute perfection every single time, then we would see truly the best players win every single tournament. Considering there's an event happening right now that may make this look like a silly take, Gannon Buhr's the #1 player in the world, and he hasn't won once so far on the European swing. And he would tell you that it has come down to mis-execution several times where he felt like he had the tournament in his hands. So while I do think that mis-execution is going to happen more often for a learning player, I believe that the decision making that you're using could be inherently setting you up for failure quite often, which is why I want to give you the upshot checklist so that hopefully you can give yourself a better chance of making the right choice on an upshot. Now, I know for several of you watching, you don't love to go to a field and do field work because you find it rather boring. You don't want to go practice putting in your backyard. You find it boring. You want to just keep playing your regular 1 to 2 rounds of disc golf a week. And what drills can I give you while you're out there on the course to really maximize that time and maximize your efficiency in trying to improve while you're out there on the course? Well, today's drill is going to be a little bit of an alternative proposal. If you'll meet me in the middle, we'll say. I'm actually walking to hole 9 on one of our local courses, and I'm going to show you a set of drills that I really love to help me practice scrambling. And it starts by finding a sketchy spot on the fairway of a hole and trying to throw some scramble shots from there. Like I said, for this drill, I'm not asking you to not go to the course. I would say, hey, instead of playing a hole 18, what if you just played 9, got that disc golf fix in, and then rather than finishing the back 9, you decided to play some drills for the same amount of time that it would take you to play the back 9. For this course, playing the back 9 is probably gonna take around 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how large of a group you have. So we just played this hole, and I'm gonna put myself in a sketchy spot. Lots of people are trying to either throw the turnover to this pin location or they're throwing the forehand. Both of which, if you hit any of these trees on the left side, can eject you into the right side, into this chaos, trying to get to the basket. So I wanna bring you guys a little closer and we'll show you what we're working with. So this is our level 1 scramble opportunity from the back of the fairway. But in order to understand the checklist, I have to introduce you to my friend, Sophie. So what does Sophie mean? Well, quite easy. S stands for shots. What shots are available? O stands for open space. Where is the most open space for me to scramble to? Because that's really going to affect the next two. P stands for preferred. Of the shots available to me trying to move into the most open space, what combination of those two do I prefer the most? The H stands for highest probability. When I have chosen that shot, what disc do I have in my bag from this distance that gives me the highest probability of executing said shot? And the IE is all about confidence. I can do this. You're telling yourself and you're believing that you can throw the shot, and then E is quite simple, execute. Now, the beautiful part about your new best friend, Sophie, is that Sophie has a different implication for every single player. She's different things to different people, which is why the first two are rather objective. We are just addressing what is presented in front of us. And then the second two are rather subjective because they're going to come down to you. And then the final two are objective once again, trying to help you find that confidence so that we can execute accordingly. Introducing Sophie to this lie that we have right here. We'll say that I'm a silly boy and I used a wraith on this hole. Bang. Lie established. So looking at the shot options that are available, I have a sort of putt right up the middle between these two trees. I have a soft throw up the middle between these two trees. I have a turnover backhand between these two, around the trees. And I have a forehand around the trees. I also probably have an Anheuser forehand up the right side. Next, I'm going to O for open spaces. Where are the most open spaces? Well, it's a pretty open space because I'm pretty close to this gap going between these two trees, but it's still a gap that I have to hit going through, and there's another tree on the right. Because I'd have to get around 1, 2 trees and some leaves, the least open space is going to be to the right side for that Anheuser forehand. Now, if I go to the left side, there is a ton of open space. In fact, there is not a single tree here between me and the basket, which is going to take us down to the P, preference. What is my preference from this shot? What shots do I have? If I'm someone who has a really well-established jump putt, then I might feel comfortable taking the jump putt through this straight up gap. But I also, let's say I have a nice simple backhand turnover that I can just pull over. That works just as well. Or maybe I have the forehand opportunity that I can also throw. Preference would be either probably the jump putt right up the gut, or for me, it's probably gonna be a little chip forehand out and around to the side, which takes me to H. The combination for highest probability is finding the most open space that has the latest tree to hit, while also including shot that I feel the most comfortable with. For instance here, in terms of using open space, if I go for this jump putt and I happen to hit one of these trees, well, now I have scrambled really poorly, and Sophie and I are not gonna have a great time because I am not much further ahead, which is gonna make converting this stroke really difficult. difficult. But I know lots of you watching don't have this forehand, so this doesn't feel like a very high possibility. Plus, there's a tree that you can hit right there. So for you, it may be the backhand turnover that you're trying to get up and over in that direction. You have to decide what you're most comfortable with and what you have the most control with. As you can see, we can misexecute on all of these, which is why highest probability combines these two factors, but also, once again, where is the last tree or the first tree that I could hit if things go poorly? I'm trying to do the forehand, instead of trying to go for the most direct route to the basket, I have all of this open space, so I can just aim to that open space and let it just fade out there and fly. But once I pick my line, I have to tell myself I can do this and I have to execute. If I'm sitting here nervous about, I don't wanna hit that tree, I don't wanna hit that tree, I don't wanna hit that tree, the only thing I'm focusing on is hitting that tree rather than I can do this and executing to hit the gap. My aim of focus has shifted. Now, two important things about using Sophie. The first is the reminder about where, if you mis-execute, is the first available contact going to be. This helps you in not only scramble upshots, but also just in tee shot decisions of what line should you pick. Because while we want to execute perfectly and we don't want to focus on the negatives, going for some higher risk lines often can create some very negative scenarios for us because we get punished so early. If you have this gap where it's like, hey, if I just miss these two trees super early, then it's wide open, I'm gonna find myself all the way down the fairway, versus if I take this route, it's a wide open spot, but then it's really tight when I hit the trees up near the basket. There's a phrase that my wife and I have really adapted in parenting, and it is setting future us up for success. Sometimes in the middle of the night, you just don't really want to clean that bottle. Sometimes, you just want to leave it there, but you have no idea what kind of state the baby's going to wake up in the morning. So if you've got the energy and you're there, we got to clean the bottle. We got to make sure we clean the bottle so that future us is set up for success, because we have no idea what situation future us is going to be in. If I go to this scramble shot that Side Guy can show again, going for the jump putt up the middle and mis-executing it means that I already had a long possible putt to make, but my second putt has still just as low a chance of going in because I've only progressed forward 20, maybe 30 feet. Whereas even if I go for the wide open space and I just get forward progress, I don't have to progress my way to the basket. I can still set future Robbie up for the chance for a putt that matters. Which is also the second part of Sophie, is that I think when people are embracing upshots, they want the shortest, most direct line to the basket. And that's where we want to look at the S and O of Sophie to say, hey, what shots does this opportunity present to me? And what are the most open spaces? Because the P and the H are really going to matter when I can utilize and lean into those open spaces. Which takes us to the second part of this drill when we're not scrambling from the fairway. Sometimes folks can get so caught up in watching Pro Tour and Pro Tour coverage that they forget that the average golfer is gonna hit some trees. So when you're scrambling from the fairways, most often, unless you're on a newer course, other people have thrown bad shots and have found themselves in situations that you currently find yourself in. So the scramble lines do exist, which creates more open spaces and more shot opportunities. So oftentimes, Sophie can feel really straightforward in the advice that she's trying to give you to scramble because the options are just laid out there for you. But what if we really leaned into what we do to interact with Sophie and we put ourselves in scenarios that most people aren't trying to throw discs from? So through these two trees on the right, the basket sits right there in the open. Now, we have to, once again, imagine that, hey, what if we had, once again, taken our wraith? By the way, Robbie C. Owl Wraith. Should we run a different stamp and run wraiths again, now that they're back in the bag? What do you guys think? Let's walk through Sophie once again. I have a sort of throw straight up the gut. I have a forehand out and around. The backhand doesn't really look like the backhand turnover exists there. I have a backhand hyzer through this gap, and then I have a forehand and hyzer through this gap. Those are the shot opportunities presented. Let's look at open spaces. Left side, while it has less gap or less trees in the way, once I get through this initial gap, there is an initial tree that's pretty short and also more limbs hanging in this space, plus harder to, even when I get forward, we could let future Robbie be set up for success, but even if I execute the shot perfectly, I'm still gonna have about a 25 to 30 footer just based on how the shot shape exists. Now going up the main gap, this feels like a gap that I feel very comfortable with throwing a shot straight through, and I think gives me a really good chance of getting close to the basket. However, if I miss execute and I hit either of these two trees or I pull it at all, future Robbie is just gonna have a bad time, which takes me to the most open space is this right side, which I'd be trying to go through. So now it just comes down to, do I want to throw a backhand and maybe go with the pig, or do I want to throw the forehand and go flex shot into the green? We're gonna go to P, which is preferences. So I'm looking at the combination there of, I believe that is the gap that we should go for, and the highest percentage shot that I'm looking at is if I have the backhand, I can see that there is a back wall that if I throw the backhand too straight, then I'm gonna hit that back wall and be in trouble, which would make me want to go more hyzer, which I think would bring in that short side just a little bit more. And this big tree standing there seems pretty large. So I would lean towards the preference of going with the turnover forehand because of just the shot shape. I think I've got a better chance of hitting the gap and letting it sort of come on in on anhyzer and flatten itself out to get close to the basket. I believe that's my highest percentage chance. So I'm gonna brace the IE and say, hey, I can do this. I can do this. Whew. And you can see there, even on the forehand, we still flirted with the back line. So let's see if, yeah, backhand, straight into the tree. Now, what have we done? We picked between the two. We liked the first one, and let's go see, did future Robbie have the opportunity to do something? So we know that we mis-executed with this pig, and we also mis-executed with the zone on the upshot. However, the zone on the upshot got much further up the fairway, which allowed us to have a 4, 5, 6, maybe 6 feet or 6 steps. So we were within 20 feet of the basket for our opportunity to save the par. I feel like we've explained Sophie, so I want to give you a couple quick reminders as we exit the video and wrap things up. The first is when you're throwing your upshots, addressing the elephant in the room, you don't always have to go for the most direct route. Sometimes playing a longer route is less scary and higher probability of converting. Sophie wants to help you, and Sophie doesn't just care about seeing cool shots. Sophie wants to see your happiness on the other side. And just like in Halloween Town, she may be just that little bit of extra magic that you need to save the day. The third elephant in the room is when it comes to scrambling. Scramble is a terrible statistic for really one reason. Scrambling still requires putting. You and Sophie could have a beautiful conversation to get you to the right disc to get you to the basket. But if we miss the putt, the scramble still feels failed. And while I know that hurts to have the opportunity to save it and then still miss, I truly do believe that the more opportunities we give ourselves to have putts that matter, the more we're going to start making those putts that matter versus careless putts of, if I would have gone with the backhand and I was trying to drain one from 50 feet away, that just is a putt that I don't feel like I should be making all the time, and therefore I don't really feel like I get better on the other side when I miss that putt. However, knowing, hey, I missed that putt low, gives me the inspiration and the focus to say, all right, let's make sure that we get a little more pop on the putt this time to get the putter higher. There are days where you're just gonna feel off on the tee box. There are days where you're just gonna feel off on the putting green. And I think for several people, those days where you're off on the tee box can really throw things for a loop for you, because you just feel like all day I'm having to make all of these decisions and I'm making the wrong ones, and this burden of distrust just within yourself begins to mount. My hope is that with your new best disc golf friend, Sophie, that you're gonna start finding that confidence that you're looking for out there to start making the right decisions to start scoring even better. So what do you think of Sophie? Let me know in the comments down below. Is there anything you would change or you would add on? Does Sophie need a last name? I wanna say thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Please make it fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're gonna leave you with the birdie.